So today I'll be looking at the Age of Apocalypse figure, and Hasbro seems to have introduced a new model lately of releasing certain deluxe figures, which are usually variants of previously released builder figures. And I actually really like this model because I think essentially what you're getting is a builder figure at a affordable price, and it saves your hand to buy entire waves of figures of things that maybe you're not that interested in buying. So I'm a huge fan of this model, and I really like that they've started exploring this. And Apocalypse is one of these. Of course, he did have a builder figure a few years ago, but this is the variant, which is Age of Apocalypse as he appears, of course, in the Age of Apocalypse storyline, which was a major X-Men crossover event in the 90s, which is still very fondly remembered to this day. And this release comes hot off the heels of having a Marvel Legends Age of Apocalypse X-Men wave last year, and of course they are doing a follow-up secondary wave later this year, so obviously having Apocalypse himself is a key element to this collection. So here he is in his packaging. Hasbro done a good job of not wasting too much space here. So the box art and the overall presentation is really nice. I love the photography in the back here. It looks really effective, and yeah, looks nice on display as well. So they've done a good job of this. So the sculpt of the figure looks really nice. I think they've recycled some of the Caliban builder figure parts, which in turn may have actually been the Apocalypse figure to begin with. I'm not sure which came first, but yeah, it's a really nice sculpt, plenty of articulation, and they've tweaked it just nicely with the gauntlets there and details on the hands. And yeah, those who've seen my Caliban builder figure review will know I was a huge fan of this sculpt anyway, so I think they've done a great job. And the little tweaks to the boots and the gauntlets work, and I think the paint wash that they're giving the figure overall, the slight metallic blues, look fantastic. So we do get two heads with this figure. Both are really good. This is obviously the open mouth sort of laughing face, which looks brilliant. I love this sculpt. Again, the paint apps and detail on it just look fantastic. And here, of course, is the alternative head, which is more the grim-faced Apocalypse that we're familiar with. And yeah, I think both these heads are brilliant, and I'm really pleased that Hasbro included both of them in for collectors, because it gives them two very distinct looks, which are both brilliant. So overall, the sculpt and the paint apps are really nicely done, particularly the metallic wash there. The gauntlets are a bit simplistic, maybe a bit of shading would have been nice, but otherwise, I'm not complaining. Now you might be wondering why he's slouching slightly, he's bent forward a little bit there. That's because the only way I could get him to stand without losing the cape is to have him bent forward slightly, which is a little frustrating and limits posability. As you can see, the cape sort of clips into the top of the shoulder pads. Now the shoulder pads are actually slightly elevated and separate from the shoulders as well. And the cape relies on these little peg holes that support the cape in place. The cape itself is a sort of fairly flexible plastic, but it's still quite rigid. And I think I would have preferred a cloth cape here, to be honest, because these pegs aren't quite long enough to secure well enough into the shoulder pads. So there is a tendency for the cape to just constantly pop off, and you've got to really bend the figure just to a certain degree so that it's a comfortable fit, which compromises posability. And because it never really fits in snugly, it's always trying to work its way out, it often leaves an unsightly gap. But when the figure is freed from the cape, your options for posability with the articulation are fantastic. The only problem is that the figure doesn't look quite right without the cape, especially with those big shoulder pads there. It looks a bit strange without it, so it feels a bit like a catch-22 really. Also, the head is limited by the big neck brace that he's got on there as well. You can rotate the head from side to side with no problems whatsoever, which is really good, but in terms of moving the head up or making him look down, nothing is happening there really at all. He does have the ball jointed shoulders, and of course he's got the bicep swivel, which is fantastic. You get a great range of motion there, but the 90-degree single joints in the arm is a bit limiting with this figure. I think it's because of the gauntlets, which make it look like it's barely moved. He can swivel 360 degrees at the waist, which is great. And he also has the ab crunch, which goes some way to make up for the limited head articulation, because he can bend a really good distance back there, which is fantastic, and he can bend all the way forwards as well, so that compensates for the lack of head movement, I think. He's got great articulation in the legs. They go all the way to the side there, all the way forwards, and they can go a little bit backwards. So yeah, they're fantastic articulation there. I think that's really, really good. Mine did have a tendency for the legs to do the splits whenever I tried to pose him, so that's something to maybe look out for, but it might be just a loose joint on mine. He does of course have the double jointed knees and the thigh swivel, so again a great range of motion in the legs there, which is brilliant. And he also has the ankle pivots as well, which is great, and can get his foot all the way back there and a fair distance forward as well, which is fantastic. So he does come with a few extras. He's obviously got the alternate head, which we saw in action before. He comes with an alternate fist hand, which is great, and he also comes with a skull, which is quite a cool little unexpected extra, and allows for some dynamic poses with the figure, or just a nice little extra to go in a diorama, say. But yeah, really cool. Again, really helps capture the character, and yeah, a nice little touch. So in terms of height comparison, here he is with the Marvel Legends Thanos Infinity Gauntlet figure. As you can see, he seems to be tower above Thanos, but then it seems like almost every Builder figure does. But yeah, it's fairly appropriate. Obviously, Apocalypse can vary his size. Here he is against the Joe Fixit Builder figure as well. Again, looks about right to me. Pretty comfortable with that. I think he's quite an intimidating, foreboding character there, so I think that works really well. Here he is standing, of course, against X-Man from the Age of Apocalypse wave, and here we have him next to Wolverine as well. So yeah, really happy with his scale. He seems to be tower above all the other figures, as he should, and I think that's really great. So in conclusion, then, I think this is a great sculpt. I think the paint wash is really nice. I love the little extras that he's been given, so I think he gets good marks for that. Unfortunately, I do feel like he's really, really hampered by that cape. That really lets the figure down. It compromises his posability. It means he's always leaning forwards. It doesn't look that great. It's like a hard plastic, which doesn't look fantastic. And if you remove the cape, it looks a bit strange to my eyes. So it does feel like, yeah, this figure's compromised heavily by that, really. For me, I have to give this figure probably 3 out of 5. I do really like that the price point for this figure. Obviously, ordinarily be paying something like £120 in the UK for a figure like this. So to have him for around about between 30 and 40, I think is a fair price to pay. And I do think he's worth that money, especially if you want to round out your Age of Apocalypse figure collection. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as I will be posting more videos soon.